So, hello everyone, welcome to my channel Study with Zanab. This is your educator Zanab Vikar, and on this channel, you get class 10th history, civics, geo, and all other subjects, chapters, and so on and so forth. You get all the subjects chapters. And on this channel, I explain these chapters to you. So, yeah, today we are with the chapter of class 10th geography, the very first chapter, that is resources and development. So we will be seeing resource as a concept as well as a definition. So talking about resource as a concept, a resource is a source or supply from which benefit is produced. Typically resources are materials, energy, knowledge, services or assets that are transformed to produce benefit and in the process may be consumed or made available. Resources like water, air, land, forest, wildlife, so on and so forth are useful to humankind, are useful to us. Now, if we talk about resource as a definition, if we see resource as a definition, so anything in our environment that can be used to satisfy our needs are called as a resource. Anything. A resource, if you have to call a resource should be technologically accessible, economically feasible, and कल्चरली एक्सेप्टेबल. दिस मीन्स जो एक रिसोर्स है वो टेक्नोलॉजिकली हमारे पास एक्सेसिबल होनी चाहिए, मतलब हमारे पास वो टेक्नोलॉजी होनी चाहिए जिनसे हम उन रिसोर्सेज को एक्सेस कर पाए. दूसरा, इकोनॉमिकली फीसिबल, हम उनको खरीद सकते हैं, ज़्यादा महंगी नहीं होनी चाहिए, और कल्चरली में हमारे कल्चर में वो एक्सेप्टेबल होनी चाहिए. ऑलराइट, सो द यूज ऑफ अ रिसोर्स गिव्स इट्स वर्थ और वैल्यू. हम उसको कितना इस्तेमाल करते हैं किसी रिसोर्स को, उससे उसका फ़ायदा या उसकी वैल्यू पता चलती है. So if a worth of a thing increases due to modification, then that thing is called a resource. So this was resource. A resource is anything in our environment that can be used to satisfy our needs. So moving on further, now we will be discussing about the changing concept of natural resource. So in past, the natural resources were viewed primarily as in past, natural resources were viewed primarily as sources or you know as sources of valuable and useful commodities. It was considered in past, but now as the things has changed, now according to the modern concept, now they were mostly the raw materials present in the environment that man could use. For example, forests, minerals, and grazing resources, fishery, wildlife, and domestic animals. Now the concept of resource have been broadened because the man have experienced or discovered various things due to suitable technology, knowledge, um and experience. So now, according to the modern concept, all living and non-living things present in our environment are considered as natural resource. Whether they are living, whether they are non-living, doesn't matter. All the things that are present in our environment are considered as natural resources. Now, there are two types of resources. You have studied this earlier as well, that is man-made resources and natural resources. Natural resources, the resources which are available with nature, are called as natural resources. For example, air, land, forest, wildlife, minerals, fossil fuels, etc. These are available with nature, so they are considered as natural resources. Man-made resources, the resources which are made by human beings by modifying natural resources. Man-made resources हम कैसे बनाते हैं? Natural resource के resources को इस्तेमाल करके ही जो है man-made resources बनती हैं. So man-made resources are made by human beings by modifying natural resources. So the resources which are made by human beings by modifying natural resources are called human-made resources or man-made resources. For example, table, pen, book, factories, vehicles, car, वगैरह वगैरह, etc. So now, look. Now, if we talk about human resources, there are another kind of resources. This is an additional concept. What are human resources? Human resources, various experts who provide their services to general public. Are called human resources. For example, doctors, lawyers, teachers, and so on and so forth. All right. So they are considered as human resources. Various experts who provide their services to general public. All right. Now, Now we have to classify the resources. We have to classify the resources on the basis of origin, on the basis of exhaustibility, on the basis of ownership, and on the basis of stage of development. So beginning with the very first one, classification of resources on the basis of origin. On the basis of origin, we have two types of resources: biotic resources and abiotic resources. Biotic resources, all living things in the biosphere, such as plants, human beings, animals, etc., are called as biotic resources. They are capable of reproduction and are generally renewable. That means they can be renewed. So the renewability of a living resource varies with species and the area involved. It varies with the species and the area involved. All right, so they are considered as biotic resources. In short, all the living things in the biosphere. Okay, all right. Now, talking about abiotic resources, all non-living things in the biosphere, such as land is non-living, air, water, minerals, fossil fuels, वगैरह वगैरह, all these are considered as abiotic, are called as abiotic resources. The usefulness of the abiotic resources depends upon their accessibility एंड कंसंट्रेशन. वो कहाँ पर कॉन्सेंट्रेटेड है और उनकी एक्सेसिबिलिटी, मतलब क्या हमारे पास वो टेक्नोलॉजी अवेलेबल है जिनसे हम उन रिसोर्सेज को एक्सेस कर सके, तो उस पर यूजफुलनेस ऑफ एबायोटिक रिसोर्सेज डिपेंड करती है. ऑल राइट, सो दिस वाज द क्लासिफिकेशन of resources on the basis of origin. Now there is one more important point, that natural resources are मे बी बायोटिक और एबायोटिक. नेचुरल रिसोर्सेज बायोटिक लिविंग भी हो सकते हैं और एबायोटिक नॉन लिविंग भी हो सकते हैं, लेकिन ऑल मैन मेड रिसोर्सेज, बट ऑल मैन मेड रिसोर्सेज आर एबायोटिक. मैन मेड रिसोर्सेज हमेशा एबायोटिक यानी कि नॉन लिविंग ही होते हैं. ऑल राइट. Now, second classification on the basis of exhaustibility. We have again two types, that is renewable resources and non-renewable resources. In renewable resources, we have further two types, continuous resources and biological resources. In non-renewable resources, we have recyclable resources and non-recyclable resources. So beginning with the first, renewable resources. So renewable resources, the resources which have the capability or ability to renew through physical, chemical or mechanical processes. These resources are also called as replenishable resources. इनको हम replenishable resources भी बोलते हैं. For example, solar energy, wind energy, water is a renewable resource, etc., etc. Now, in renewable resources, we have further two types, continuous resource and biological resource. Continuous resource, what is continuous resource? So those resources which can be used and replenished at the same time. These they do not remain in one location and move about by natural actions in the physical environment. They move about, they do not remain एक ही जगह पे वो नहीं रहते, वो they move about by natural actions in the physical environment. For example, they are continuous. Okay, running water, solar radiations. All right, and we can also say running water, solar radiations, wind is continuous. All right, etc. Now, biological resources, those resources which are required by an organism, जो हम एक organism को चाहिए होती है for natural growth, maintenance and for reproduction. For example, plants, human beings, animals, these are all biological resources. Those resources which are required by an organism for natural growth, maintenance and reproduction. All right, now these were all about renewable resources. Now coming on to non-renewable resources. These resources cannot reproduce quickly. They takes millions of years in their formation. सैकड़ों साल लग जाते हैं इनको फॉर्म करने में, इनको बनने में. ठीक है, तब तक आई डोंट नो ह्यूमैनिटी रहेगी भी कि नहीं. सो दे आर considered as non-renewable resources because they take millions of years in their formation. So these resources cannot reproduce quickly and can be exhausted. These takes millions of years in their formation, and these are exhaustible and non-renewable. For example, coal, petroleum, natural gas, fossil fuels, minerals, etc. Now these resources are also further classified into two types, that are recyclable resources and non-recyclable resources. Recyclable resources, the resources which can be recycled. For example, metals can be recycled and we can make something new from it, all right, so they can be recycled. And non-recyclable resources, the resources which cannot be recycled. For example, fossil fuels, minerals, coal, petroleum, etc., etc., they cannot be recycled, all right. So this was the classification on the basis of exhaustibility. Now, classification on the basis of ownership. We have four types. First is individual resources, second is national resources, community resources, and international resources. So individual resources, these resources are privately owned by individuals. ये हम privately owned. For example, अगर मेरा phone है तो वो मेरा individual resource है, all right? वो किसी और का नहीं, वो मेरा individual, privately owned by me है. So these resources are privately owned by individuals. For example, you can say phone, you can say vehicles, farmlands, orchards, all right, factories, industries, etc., etc. Now, community resources, these resources are owned by a community or a group of individuals. For example, public parks, playground, grazing lands in villages, ponds in villages, so on and so forth. Then we have national resources. These resources are the property of a country, and are under the control of its government. In resources को कौन control करता है? Government, उस country की government. All right. These resources are the property of a country and are under the control of its government. So, for example, territorial sea, we can say forest, we can say wildlife, we can say us country ki fossil fuels, we can say, all right. So these resources help in the growth and development of a country and its people, all right. Then we have international resources. These resources are owned by international institutions, and these they can be used by individual nations or community after getting permission from international institutions. We can use them after getting permission from the international institutions. So they can be these and can be used by individual nations or community after getting permission from international institutions. For example, open sky for flight movement and open sea for peaceful navigation, etc., etc., are all international resources. Now, classification on the basis of state of development. We have potential resources, developed resources, stock resources, and reserve resources. So, potential resources. What are potential resources? Potential resources. So, the known resources in a region, but have not properly developed, as their quality or quantity are not fully defined. हमें पता है कि कहाँ मिलती है, हमारे पास टेक्नोलॉजी भी है, मगर वो properly developed नहीं है. As the जो उनकी quality and quantity, they are not fully defined. For example, solar energy, wind energy, geothermal energy, etc., etc. Second is developed resources. The resources in a region which are available for use. हम उनको use करें, वो properly developed है, हमारे पास टेक्नोलॉजी भी है. For example, coal and petroleum, availability of technology, feasibility and accessibility. Availability of technology, feasibility and accessibility decides their exploration, their development and utilization, all right. Then we have stock resources. So the resources which can possibly satisfy the human beings, but human beings do not have the required technical knowledge to reach them. मतलब अगर हमारे पास वो हो तो वो हमारी नीड सेटिस्फाई कर सकते हैं, मगर हमारे पास उस तक पहुंचने के लिए या उनको डेवलप करने के लिए हमारे पास suitable technical knowledge नहीं है, टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं है. That is why we cannot reach them. So the resources which can possibly satisfy the human beings, but human beings do not have the required technical knowledge to reach them. For example, hydrogen and water can be used as a source of energy, but but due to lack of technology, we do not have the technology to do so. It is not possible at present. Okay. Then we have the last one, that is reserve resources. So the resources which are in reserve can be utilized with the available technical knowledge, but their exploration is not started yet. हम उनको partially use, हमारे पास technology भी है, वो developed भी, हम उनको use भी करते हैं, but partially आधा हम उनको future generation के लिए reserve करके रखते हैं. So they are known as reserve resources. So the resources which are in reserve can be utilized with the available technical knowledge, but their exploration is not started yet. For example, rivers and forests are reserves but still have limited exploration. हम उनको किसी limit तक इस्तेमाल करते हैं and we reserve them for the future generation. Alright. So talking about now development of resources. We know resources are important for human survival as well as maintaining the standard of living. Alright, the resources have been used by human beings since ancient times, and the indiscriminate use of resources have caused the following problems. कुछ problems indiscriminate use हम करते हैं, उससे कुछ problems हुई है. क्या problems? Depletion of resources at a faster rate, especially non-renewable resources जिनको हम renew नहीं कर सकते. Second is unequal resource distribution, which created the accumulation of resources and few hands, which resulted in the formation of rich and poor people. All right. And the third one, we can say indiscriminate use of resources. उससे क्या हुआ? Led to global warming, depletion of ozone layer, and environmental and land degradation. So ये कुछ problems है जो कि indiscriminate use of resources से हुई है, and we should stop them. Now, second is sustainable development. What is sustainable development? In simpler words, this means the development without damaging the environment, and the present development should benefit also the future generation. This means the development without damaging the environment, and the present development should benefit also the future generation. वो development जिससे हम environment को harm नहीं करते हैं, और जो हम प्रेजेंटली डेवलप करें उससे वो हमारी फ्यूचर जनरेशन के लिए भी बेनिफिशियल होना चाहिए. ऑल राइट, that is known as sustainable development. Now we have to study about a Rio de Janeiro. So what is this? The first United Nations Conference, UNCED ने से बोला जाता है, was held in Rio de Janeiro. It is in Brazil in 1992. So its main aim was to solve the problems of environmental protection and socio-economic development at the global level. Alright, so in this conference, more than 100 heads from different countries of the world participated. The participating countries agreed on global forest principles and developed Agenda 21. उन्होंने इसमें एक Agenda 21 develop किया. So, and developed Agenda 21 to achieve sustainable development in the 21st century. वो क्यों डेवलप किया गया वो एजेंडा? क्योंकि वो लोग सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट अचीव करना चाहते थे in the 21st century. So the joint statement, जो इसकी joint statement है, is known as the Declaration on Global Climatic Changes and Biological Diversity. इसकी joint statement is known as the Declaration on Global Climatic Changes and Biological Diversity. So the aim of the Agenda 21 was to achieve sustainable development in 21st century through local governments in order to combat environmental damage, poverty and diseases through global cooperation. So what was the main aim of the Agenda 21? To achieve sustainable development in the 21st century. Alright, now let us talk about resource planning. So now we have seen कि resources जो है indiscriminately use की जाती है. Now we have to protect them, we have to conserve them. For that we need resource planning. So India is very rich in resources, but the resources are unevenly distributed. Alright, so some states like we can say some states are self-sufficient, मतलब उनके पास अच्छी resources है, like Odisha, we can say Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, etc. Some states have acute shortage of resources, like Punjab, we can say Haryana, Arunachal Pradesh, etc. They have acute shortage of resources, etc. So the various limitations and differences in the resource distribution demands proper resource planning, resource planning from national and local levels for a healthy and fair development. They demand proper resource planning so that the resources are not unevenly distributed. So this leads to acute shortage of resources in some states. So the various limitations and differences in the resource distribution demands proper resource planning from national and local levels for a fair and healthy development. Now, resource planning is a technique or skill of proper utilization of resources, ताकि हम resources को properly utilize कर सके without any uneven distribution. So resource planning is a technique or skill of proper utilization of resources. It is necessary due to the following reasons. Most of the resources are limited in quantity, they are unevenly distributed. It will reduce environmental and wastage of resources, and it will also reduce overutilization of the resources. So that is why resource planning is very essential. All right, so the following steps are involved in the resource planning. अब resource planning की कैसे जाती है, इसमें कुछ steps involve होते हैं. Number one, identification and inventory of resources across the different regions of the country. This comprises of surveying, पहले survey, then mapping, then measurement, etc. Then planning for resource development. Resource development के लिए हमें plan करना होता है by using proper skills, technology and institutional setup. We plan for resource development and matching the resource development plans with overall national development plans. We match these plans with overall national development plans. Now, in India, this is important point that in India, the planning for the development of resources has started immediately after independence. That is with the beginning of the first 5-year plan. The planning of resources in India has already started. That is with the beginning of the first 5-year plan. So this was resource planning. So what is resource planning? Is a technique or skill of proper utilization of resources. It is necessary because resources are limited in quantity, they are unevenly distributed. It will reduce the wastage of resources, the overutilization of resources. Alright, so resource planning is very, very essential. Now, moving on further, resource and colonization. Now we will be studying about resources and colonization. You know, the Europeans came to India in search of resources and exploited them. Right? They developed suitable technology. They developed a suitable technology to exploit the resources of India and were successful. ठीक है, उन्होंने टेक्नोलॉजीज डेवलप की जिससे वो इंडिया के रिसोर्सेज एक्सप्लॉइट कर सके. सो इंडिया हैज लर्न फ्रॉम हर पास्ट एक्सपीरियंसेस that development in general does not involve only availability of resources but also the technology, quality of human resources, and historical experiences of the people. This all is known as a development. All right, now conservation of resources. Conservation of resources for the needs of the human kind. Resources are being overutilized worldwide that have led to socio-economic and environmental problems. To overcome these problems, conservation of resources is need of the day. Regarding conservation of resources, Mahatma Gandhi once said, there's enough for everybody's, he remarked, Mahatma Gandhi, that there is enough for everybody's need and not for anybody's greed. So he blamed the greedy and selfish people and modern technology for the reckless exploitation and wastage of resources. So he blamed, Mahatma Gandhi ji blamed. So this is very important that what Mahatma Gandhi ji remarked, what he said, that there is enough for everybody's need and not for anybody's greed. Now, at the global level, the following steps have been taken for the conservation of resources. The Club of Rome advocated the cause of resource conservation. The Club of Rome advocated the cause of resource conservation for the first time in a systematic way in 1968. In 1974, the Schumacher, in his book Small is Beautiful, asserted on the philosophy of Mahatma Gandhi. Then in 1987, the Brundtlander Commission report introduced the concept of sustainable development as a mean for resource conservation. It was also added in the book Our Common Future. And then in 1992, the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil made significant contribution. उन्होंने भी significant contribution for the conservation of resources. All right. Okay. So, in 1992, the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil made significant contribution towards the conservation of the resources. All right. I hope it is clear. Now, conservation. एक अब हम conservation होता क्या है? This is also important. It can be defined as protection, prevention, and efficient use of resources. It is necessary. Why is it necessary? Due to the following reasons. Number one, resources are limited and are unlimitedly distributed on Earth, and non-renewable resources take millions of years to form, especially coal and petroleum. If they will finish, they cannot be remade. That is why we need to conserve them. Number three, while using the resources, we should think of future generation also. हम जब resources को इस्तेमाल करते हैं, हमें future generation के बारे में भी सोचना चाहिए. All right. Now moving further. Now this was all. Now we have to see land as a separate resource and soil as a separate resource. So land एक separate resource है और soil एक separate resource है. We will be seeing land as a separate resource and soil as a separate resource. So land as a resource. So what is the importance of land? Land is an important gift of nature. Land is an important gift of nature. So land, as all the economic and cultural activities of human beings are associated with it. Land is used for living, and it supports natural vegetation, agriculture, industries, transports, वगैरह वगैरह. It supports, so land is very important. The share of land on the Earth's surface is only about 29%. The share of land on the Earth's surface is only about 29%. जो land का share है Earth surface पे. So the Indian geographical area, इंडिया का एरिया क्या है? द इंडियन जोग्राफिकल एरिया 3.28 मिलियन स्क्वायर किलोमीटर्स इंडिया का एरिया है, जोग्राफिकल एरिया, which comprises of, जिसमें से हमारे पास 43% plains है for agriculture and industries, 27% plateaus, which is a source of minerals, forests and fossil fuels, and 30% mountains, which ensures perennial flow of some rivers and provides tourist centers. So from this we get the importance of land, that is land is very very important resource and it should be conserved. All right. So now land utilization or land use pattern in India. The proportion of land put to different uses is known as the land use pattern. जो हिस्सा land का अलग अलग, for example ये agriculture के लिए है, ये industries के लिए है, ये buildings के लिए है, जो अलग 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 ये forest के लिए है, ये cultivation के लिए है. All right. तो अलग अलग uses के लिए land का जो proportion पुट किया जाता है उनको उसको लैंड यूज पैटर्न बोलते हैं. सो द प्रोपोर्शन ऑफ लैंड पुट टू डिफरेंट यूजेस इज नोन एज द लैंड यूज पैटर्न. इट इज डिटरमाइंड बाय द नेचुरल एंड द ह्यूमन नीड्स. जो नेचुरल और ह्यूमन की जो नीड्स है उसी से उनको आप डिटरमाइन करते हैं. सो द लैंड इज यूज्ड फॉर द फॉलोइंग पर्पसेस. पहले फॉरेस्ट के लिए, फॉरेस्ट उगाने के लिए इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. फॉरेस्ट आर वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, वेरी एसेंशियल. नंबर टू, लैंड नॉट अवेलेबल फॉर एग्रीकल्चर, मतलब यहाँ पर कल्टिवेशन, सॉरी, लैंड नॉट अवेलेबल फॉर कल्टिवेशन, मतलब यहाँ पर कल्टिवेशन नहीं होती है. दैट इज बैरन. बैरन लैंड मतलब, बैरन का मतलब होता है इनफर्टाइल. बैरन एंड वेस्ट लैंड, दैट इज बैरन एंड वेस्ट लैंड. एंड जो एरिया अंडर, जो हमारे पास जो कल्टिवेशन के लिए लैंड अवेलेबल नहीं है वो एरिया अंडर किसके हैं? एरिया अंडर नॉन एग्रीकल्चरल यूजेस. यानी कि वहाँ पर हमारे फॉर एग्जांपल वहाँ पर शॉप्स हो सकती है, रोड्स हो सकती है, बिल्डिंग्स हो सकती है, इंडस्ट्रीज हो सकती है, फैक्ट्रीज हो सकती है, वगैरह वगैरह. ऑल राइट. सो दिस इज लैंड नॉट अवेलेबल फॉर एग्रीकल्चर. नाउ वी विल बी टॉकिंग अबाउट अदर कल्टिवेटेड यूज. कल्टिवेशन के अलावा we can say permanent pastures and grazing lands. We can say area under tree crops. एक्सक्लूडिंग नेट जोन एरिया. नेट जोन इसमें एरिया नहीं होता. नेट जोन एरिया क्या होता है हम आगे पढ़ेंगे. एक्सक्लूडिंग नेट जोन एरिया. एंड थर्डली वी कैन से कल्टिवेबल वेस्ट लैंड, मतलब वहाँ पर कल्टिवेशन की जा सकती है लेकिन वो वेस्ट लैंड है. दैट इज एरिया नॉट कल्टिवेटेड फॉर मोर देन 5 years. 5 years से ज़्यादा हमने उसको कल्टिवेट, 5 years मतलब 5 साल गुजर चुके हैं, हमने उसको कल्टिवेट नहीं किया है. दैट इज कल्टिवेबल वेस्ट लैंड, not cultivated for more than 5 years. ऑल राइट. देन वी हैव फैलो लैंड. फैलो लैंड में हमारा एक करंट फैलो होता है और एक अदर देन करंट फैलो होता है. करंट फैलो लेफ्ट, नॉट लेफ्ट अनकल्टिवेटेड फॉर वन एग्रीकल्चर ईयर, जिसको एक एग्रीकल्चर ईयर से हमने कल्टिवेट नहीं किया. सो लेफ्ट अनकल्टिवेटेड फॉर वन एग्रीकल्चर ईयर. अदर देन कल्टिवेशन क्या होता है, नॉट कल्टिवेटेड फॉर 1 to 5 years तक हमने उसको कल्टिवेट नहीं, दैट इज अदर देन करंट फैलो. Then we have net zone area. Net zone area, it is a part. Net zone area, it is a part of the total area which is actually cultivated in India. It is 46% of the total area. It is 46% of the total area. It is the part of the total area which is actually cultivated in India. All right. So it is a part of the total land area. Okay, all right. Now gross cropped area. Gross cropped area sown more than once in an agriculture year. एक एरिया जो एक से ज़्यादा साल के लिए एग्रीकल्चर ईयर के लिए वो सोन किया जाता है, उगाया जाता है, प्लस नेट सोन एरिया, जिसमें नेट सोन एरिया भी आते हैं, उसको हम ग्रॉस क्रॉप्ड एरिया बोलते हैं. एरिया सोन मोर देन वंस इन एन एग्रीकल्चर ईयर प्लस नेट सोन एरिया इज कॉल्ड ग्रॉस क्रॉप्ड एरिया. All right. So now the use of land is determined by the following factors, by the two factors. First is physical factor and human factor. Physical factor, this includes climate, soil type and topography. And human factor, this includes population density, cultural traditions, and we can say technical knowledge of the people. So these are the two factors which determines the land use. So the use of land is determined by these two factors, human factor and physical factor. Now, net zone area in different states. Now, net zone area also varies. So the net zone area varies widely in different states in India. Okay, it is over 80% in Punjab and Haryana due to we can say due to agricultural facilities, especially irrigation facilities and presence of plain lands. It is less than 10% in Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Mizoram and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. These areas are hilly and have less plain lands. इसकी वजह से वहाँ पर less than 10% होता है. And it is over 80% in Punjab and Haryana due to agricultural facilities, especially irrigation facilities and presence of plain lands. All right. Now land degradation. What is land degradation? So continuous use of land and old techniques of farming and lack of irrigation facilities, etc. have led to problems of land degradation. All right. इससे land degradation की problems होती हैं. And serious effects of environment. Land degradation is a process in which the quality and quantity of land is affected by a combination of human factors, like we can say overgrazing, unscientific farming, and what else we can say, unscientific water, mining, wind farming, deforestation, etc. इनसे land degrade होता है. So continuous use of land and old techniques of farming, lack of irrigation facilities, etc. have led to problems of land degradation and serious effect of environment. Land degradation is a process in which the quality and quantity of land is affected by a combination of human factors like wind, overgrazing, deforestation, unscientific farming, water, etc. etc. So currently India has 130 million hectares of wasteland. इंडिया के पास 130 million hectares of wasteland है, जिसमें से हम 28% is forest eroded land, 56% is forest degraded land, 28% is forest degraded land, 56% is water eroded land, 10% is wind eroded land, and 6% is saline land. So these are 130 million hectares of wasteland in India that India currently has. All right. Now causes of land degradation. Causes क्या है? Land degradation होता कैसे? Because most of the industries in India do not have proper dumping sites. They do not have proper dumping sites and waste treatment plants. So the industrial waste are released to nearby fields and water bodies, which leads to degradation of soil and water, जिससे soil and water degrade हो जाती है. So okay. Then we can say the crushing of various minerals by different industries. uh, okay, which leads to, leads to generation of heavy amount of dust, which makes the air polluted. So the crushing of various minerals by different industries led to generation of heavy amount of dust, which makes the air polluted. And we can say, what else, and the cement dust which is released by the cement industries, the cement dust which is released by the cement industries settle down to nearby fields, which affects the infiltration of water and crop cultivation. So these are some causes of land degradation. Other causes we can say, besides the deforestation, overgrazing, surface mining, etc., are also responsible for land degradation. Now, conservation. How can we conserve land? The land conservation can be done by the following ways: afforestation, that is planting more and more trees, control over mining activities, control on overgrazing, and by growing thorny bushes in the sand dunes. And what else? We can do is proper management of waste from industries, wasteland management, and management of water bodies. All this can help us to conserve land. So this was all about land as a resource. Now we will be studying about soil as a resource, separately about soil as a resource. So talking about soil as a resource, so the word soil is derived from a Latin word solum, which means floor or ground. It is a Latin word solum from which the word soil is derived from, which means floor or ground. So soil is that part of a land which is fertile and is used for cultivation of crops. So the thickness, soil is a renewable and natural resource. The total thickness of the soil on the surface of the earth is never more than 1 meter in depth. So it takes millions of years to form a few centimeter thickness of soil on the earth's surface. So soil takes millions of years to form. Okay. It can be renewed, but it takes millions of years to form. Soil is composed of soil में आपके पास minerals, organic matter, water, air. All right. So the process of soil formation, जो process होता है soil बनने का, that is known as pedogenesis. The process of soil formation is known as pedogenesis. So the main factors which are responsible for the formation of soil are the parent rock material, the relief of the earth's surface, time, and the natural vegetation and other forms of living organisms, and the climatic conditions. These are all responsible, the main factors which are responsible for the formation of soil. Now we have to classify soil, classification of soil. So on the basis of color, we will do texture, thickness, age, etc. In the soil in India is classified into the following types. First is alluvial soil. Alluvial soil, these are most fertile soil in India, and cover these are most fertile soil in India, and um cover 40% of the total area. Some features of alluvial soil are: the alluvial soil are rich in potash, lime, and phosphoric acid. These soils are most suitable for the cultivation of rice, wheat, oil seeds, and sugarcane. And these soils are mostly found in the, you know, in the river valleys of northern plains and the delta region of India and the coastal strips. These soils are generally of two types: khada and banga. Khada, the soils made of newer alluvial are called khada. Mostly they are located near the rivers. And banga, these the soils which are made of older alluvial are called as banga. They are mostly located away from the rivers. Okay. So this is alluvial soil. The second is black soils. What are black soils? So these are these are black in color. The black soils, these are black in color and are known as regular soils, and also known as regular soils, or you can say black cotton soils. So some features of the black soil are, इनके भी कुछ features होते हैं. And some features of the black soil are सबसे पहले, दे आर मेड ऑफ फाइन क्ले मटेरियल. These soils are rich in potash, lime, calcium carbonate, and magnesium. They develop, they develop deep cracks during dry season. They develop deep cracks during dry season, which helps in the aeration of the soils, जिससे soils को जो है, and you know जब हमें जो soils को जो है हमारी aeration मिलती है, हवा मिलती है इससे, and they become sticky during rainy season. वो sticky हो जाते हैं, and are difficult to till, तो till करने में